all Indian literature owes its development to Sanskrit. It is, of course, the mother of all languages, and absolutely the youngest and the most vibrant one for researchers and technologists. Ancient glorified research works were done through this medium, and the then seers expressed their scientific discoveries through Sanskrit. It is yet to be analyzed and developed deep. The seminar, Emerging Trends in Sanskrit Research, is to make the language again the glorious one. Today, we have two eminent scholars for the presentation. Dr. Peter Schaff, President, the Sanskrit Library Fellow, Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and Dr. Amba Kulkarni, Faculty Member, Sanskrit Studies, University of Hyderabad. I welcome Dr. Unnikrishnan Nambudiri, Head of the Department of Sahitya, Government Sanskrit College, Thiruvananthapuram, for his welcome address. Sir.
Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. A very good morning to one and all present here. We are moving to the third day of the international webinar, Emerging Trends in Sanskrit Research, which is organized by our IQSC, Government Sanskrit College, Thiruvananthapuram. We had a legendary series of lectures and papers in the past 2 days. Dr. Srinivasa Varkhedi, Dr. C. Rajendran, Dr. P.C. Murali Madhavan, Dr. Dominic Goodall, Dr. G. Gangadharan Nair made the past 2 days highly informative, enriched with golden ideas, and inspired all Sanskrit lovers who were present in the webinar. We had all live discussion also. The members present were actively responding. Members like Dr. S.A.S. Sharma, Dr. C.M. Neelakanthan, our Neelakanthan sir, Tejas Nambudiri, Dr. Anand Dilip Raj, and many others made the sessions interesting through their interactions. Today, we are having two valuable papers by two eminent international figures with commendable knowledge in Sanskrit grammar and linguistics, especially in computational linguistics. Let me introduce these two dignitaries. This may be a long welcome speech because of the long profile of or long number of achievements they have earned. Peter Schaff earned his BA in philosophy at Wesleyan University and his doctorate in Sanskrit at the University of Pennsylvania, after which he taught Sanskrit at Brown University for 19 years and conducted research on the linguistic and philosophical traditions in India since 2011. He has held several visiting professorships, visiting professor at the Maharishi International University Research Institute, International Blaise Pascal Research Chair at the University of Paris, visiting professor in the Department of Sanskrit Studies, University of Hyderabad, visiting professor of Sanskrit in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, Mumbai, and visiting professor in the Language Technologies Research Center at the International Institute of Information Technology in Hyderabad. He is currently a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Study in Shimla and the director of the Sanskrit Library, an international digital Sanskrit library which he founded in 2002. His work over the past 15 years Developing innovative research and instructional technology for Sanskrit has proven to be eminently successful. He has obtained more than $1 million in grants to integrate manuscripts, texts, lexical resources, and linguistic software in projects that produce a new paradigm of access to primary cultural materials of India. He cataloged and digitized Sanskrit manuscripts at Brown University, the University of Pennsylvania also, and Harvard University. Align manuscripts with corresponding digital text, allowing focused access to sought passages in the manuscript images, and developed image text alignment software to automate the process. He digitized some 45 Sanskrit lexical sources and integrated them to allow simultaneous lookup. These lexical sources sorry, these lexical sources
So mute ആണ്.
sorry. Yes, can you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. In view of the success of these projects, he was awarded a prestigious international Blaise Pascal Research Chair in Paris for a year, where he brought Indian theories of semantics and syntax face to face with modern computational linguistics and directed a project to build a tagged corpus of Sanskrit texts. The year culminated in an edited volume of papers on Sanskrit syntax published in 2015. He is now developing a computational implementation of Paninian grammar. Paninian grammar based on a XML formalization of the entire Ashtadhyayi. He completed in 2016 and is investigating the use of Paninian models of verbal cognition in computational syntax. His project this year at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies is to translate and elucidate the early 17th century cognitive linguistic Kaundabhatta's treatises on the conclusion of the Paninian tradition. Now, I welcome Peter Strauss on behalf of our IQSE and Government Sanskrit College. Swagatam te Mahabhaga. Now, Amba Kulkarni, Amba Pradeep Kulkarni, popularly known as Amba Rao, in 1970s, were taking education and also thinking of career being in Maharashtra, which is forward in many aspects, was an added advantage. Amba Kulkarni was fortunate to have an educational atmosphere at home. Means she born in Patna and brought up in Maharashtra. She got admission to both medicine and engineering, but decided to go for higher studies in mathematics. She did her graduation, BSc in mathematics, with 91% of marks. In the history of Shivaji University, means unprecedented performance with first rank. The second rank holder got only 82%, but she got 91%. She continued with her higher studies at Shivaji University, completing her master's in mathematics in 82 with Professor L. Radhakrishna and Professor Kumbhojkar. In 1979, she got second prize in essay competition organized by TIFR to celebrate with birth anniversary of Einstein. Then in 1990, she not only supported her but even encouraged her to take up a job of research scientist at IIT Kanpur and to work under Professor Vineet Chaitanya and Professor Rajiv Sangal. Even though it meant a separation for him from his family, it is only because of in-laws' support she could pursue her higher studies, MTech. In computer science in India, IIT Kanpur. She got her PhD in 2010 from University of Hyderabad. The degree is in the field of applied linguistics under the guidance of her friend and colleague, Professor G. Uma Maheshwar Rao. Recently, 2012, she got a MA in Sanskrit from Karnataka State Open University at Mysore also. She was awarded a Visishta Sanskrit Sevavrati Samman by the Rashtriya Sanskrit Samstha New Delhi in 2015. On the 10th of November, the Vice President of India, Sri Venkaiah Naidu, cites from the book edited with Professor Gerard Hood and Peter Schaff. Recently, she gave an interview to the most popular educational portal, Brain Booksa. Then she has taught many courses in the difficult institutes like IIT, University of Hyderabad on different topics. Many projects. Near 100, more than 100 papers, journals and books. Awards and all near 23, 25 awards. So, just to read out these main achievements, minimum 1 hour needed. So now I welcome Dr. Amba Kulkarni to our this international webinar, Emerging Trends in Sanskrit Research, conducted by our IQAC. Swagatam, Peter Schaff Mahabhaga, Amba Kulkarni Mahode, Dvayorapi, Sanandam, Sadaram, Swagatam, Vyaharami. And I welcome all other dignitaries who are all present here in this international webinar. Namo Namaha. Punaha Swagatam Vyahritya Viramatyam Janaha. Jayatu Sanskritam, Jayatu Bharat.
Thank you, sir. It's the time for our first session. Mr. Peter Schaff is a thorough scholar and well experienced in teaching. He had been teaching abroad for decades. I welcome and I invite Peter Schaff, sir, to deliver his speech. Sir. Sir, it's mute.
Thank you, and thank you for your generous introductions. I will be talking today on a general topic in guiding Sanskrit research nowadays, and particularly how to avoid two extremes of research that have come to the fore influenced by political trends. And basically we must avoid these two extremes in order to continue to engage in valuable research. Now, I will share my screen. So first we'll talk a little bit about humanities versus science and how these are perceived, and some about cultural chauvinism and subaltern studies, two dominant political influences in academia today. And these are influenced by materialism versus fundamentalism. Then we'll come back to this topic of humanities versus science and talk about consciousness and the unity of science and the ancient Indian philology on the nature of consciousness. Humanities is the study of cultural conceptions. It's the study of the history of ideas and the conceptions expressed by different cultures, which forms the core of the humanities in modern academia. This is based on Hegel's examination of various cultural conceptions and their influence in shaping subsequent cultural conceptions in his phenomenology of spirit. This is the Geistesgeschichte, or the history of spirit. And humanities is called Geisteswissenschaften, the sciences of the spirit. Philology is a Greek word, philologia, love of learning, from philein to love plus logos, which is a word or reason very similar to the term shabda in Sanskrit. It consists of careful study of literary works to understand what the authors want to express, the common and universal principles and experiences he or she wants to share. What is cultural chauvinism? Edward Said, a professor at Columbia in the 1970s, wrote a very influential book called Orientalism, and had some very profound insights into how Western civilizations, motivated by their desire to dominate in colonialism, shaped knowledge and used knowledge to denigrate other cultures. And in his book, he says, defensive, reactive, and even paranoid nationalism is, alas, frequently woven into the very fabric of education, where children as well as older students are taught to venerate and celebrate the uniqueness of their tradition, usually and invidiously at the expense of others. It is to such uncritical and unthinking forms of education and thought that this book is addressed as a corrective. Now, I might add that, you know, at the time he wrote, that was certainly true of the educational systems of Europe, but we must also look now to see how true it is of contemporary educational systems in other countries of the world, former colonies of the world, and in particular, what we're interested in is if that is true in India. Fundamentalism, he addresses in this passage. A curious paradox is that religious fervor seems almost always to obscure notions of the sacred or divine, as if those could not survive in the overheated, largely secular atmosphere of fundamentalist combat. So fundamentalist religions are often arguing about points which actually have very little to do with spiritual progress or personal development. They have more to do with the dominance of a certain political agenda. Said went on to point out how European cultures dominated other colonies through knowledge subjugation. He says, my contention is that without examining Orientalism as a discourse, Orientalism here basically means the study of the East, but as he describes here, it has to do with the ideologies that make up the attitudes towards the East, okay? So he's saying, without examining this Orientalism as a discourse in itself, meaning how scholars write and talk with each other about the East, one cannot possibly understand the enormously systematic discipline by which European culture was able to manage and even produce the Orient politically, sociologically, militarily, ideologically, scientifically, and imaginatively during the post-Enlightenment period. The phenomenon of Orientalism, as I study it here, he says, deals principally not with a correspondence between Orientalism and the Orient, but with the internal consistency of Orientalism and its ideas about the Orient, despite or beyond any correspondence or lack thereof with a real Orient. This study of Orientalism has very little to contribute to the facts about the Orient. Now, this is very interesting because he is describing how scholars of the East reimagine or recreate in their writings a picture, a description of the East, which may not conform, which may or may not conform with what is actually going on in the East. And this picture has been objected to by others, and others have argued against it. But what's interesting here is that he is turning his attention to the ideas of the scholars themselves talking to each other. So now the discourse has shifted from having to do with the real study of India, in particular, as our interest. This is true also of the Near East and of the Far East. He was mostly concerned with the Near East, but it's equally true about the study of India. So the discourse of scholars in reacting to his work and in continuing his work are dealing no longer with an actual study of Indian ideas. They're dealing with themselves and their own ideas, and they're talking to each other about ideas formulated in the West and dealing with Western scholars' conceptions. So now I'd like to just take a look at the topics which have been presented recently in the Columbia South Asia seminar. Okay, this is an excerpt of some of the abstracts, and it's quite representative. In fact, I hardly find a single paper offered in that series which has anything substantial to say about India without devoting significant attention to addressing the ideas of Orientalism itself as Said described it. In other words, they have to frame their ideas in a certain language in order to speak to each other. And I've highlighted these passages in red, okay? A political theory of yoga. Now, work on yoga, of course, is very welcome, but a political theory of yoga as a political idea? And he has in his abstract these passages: colonial era conceptions of political sovereignty, politics of modernity. These types of phrases are absolutely necessary in contemporary discourse in the humanities, and particularly the humanities study of India, in order for any scholar to be recognized as a serious scholar. In the next paper here by Audrey Truschke, difference that matter, defining the Ghurid threat in North India. Okay, now it's very interesting to study the Islamic assaults on India in their early stages. However, what is she talking about? Markers of stark otherness, difference. Okay, these same terms that have to frame her discourse are guiding the entire presentation of the topic. And similarly elsewhere, okay? Making pictures, memorializing moods in India's 18th century, okay? It's great to look at India's aesthetic traditions, but only if it's only an acceptable topic in contemporary humanities in the United States if it deals with political power and so on, and wielding their power. Okay, painting is wielding power, really. Okay, these topics. Okay, and I go on and on. We won't go into all of them, but you can see confront, caste, class, navigate and negotiate the topic, to legitimate of questions of legitimate language, social imaginaries of difference, and ideas of belonging. All these kinds of ideas and topics have to do with the same topics. Now, Hegel, who as I mentioned, was the primary influence on the direction and content of humanities studies in modern times, warned against painting every discipline with the same brush. And this is exactly what has happened in modern humanities. Every humanities scholar has to frame their discourse in terms of the subjugation of other ethnicities, of underprivileged or disenfranchised groups, and so forth, in order to be considered serious. In other words, it's got to be a Marxist doctrine. And as you can see, Anupama Rao explicitly addresses Marx and Maharashtra. Okay, and again, caste, race, gender, these are the hot topics in the humanities. I mean, these are sociological topics. What do they have to do with humanities and the history of ideas? Only insofar as somebody wants to frame them in a Marxist discourse. Construction of racialized hierarchies. This is obviously something that's going on in America today with these Black Lives Matter protests. They're being put forward and sympathized with, even if they engage in random violence, even against other members of their own race. Now, to combat this Orientalism, there are figures who have come up in recent years. Rajiv Malhotra is a prominent writer now. He's not an academic by tradition, but he got into the idea of combating the colonial subjugation of Indian ideas. Now, he writes in the jacket to his Being Different. Unfortunately, in the rush to celebrate the growing popularity of India on the world stage, its civilizational matrix is being co-opted into Western universalism, thereby diluting its distinctiveness and potential. Now, in my opinion, there's a serious point here that Western knowledge is considered universal, and any other knowledge in the world is considered just a cultural expression of that particular culture. So Indian ideas are something that, certain poets in a certain time and place happen to think, influenced by their time and place, and certainly influenced in the dialogue of modern humanities, certainly influenced by some motives to subjugate other peoples. And this is a prime discourse which is going on in India now, accusing the Sanskrit, whole tradition of Sanskrit knowledge of being a project by a privileged class of Brahmins to subjugate other classes. Now, the Sanskrit language has been used as the language of transmission of ideas for nearly 4 millennia now, and every cultural group on the subcontinent has engaged in production of literature in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is not responsible for any ideas of subjugation. Sanskrit is a medium of transmission of knowledge, and it's the primary medium of the transmission of knowledge in India for these 4,000 years. Everything that was written and everything of value that was written in Sanskrit. And if Sanskrit is ignored, then all of these ideas are also ignored and knowledge is ignored and lost. This is an extremely valuable point. However, the jacket on Malhotra's book continues, in being different, an Indian challenge to Western universalism, thinker and philosopher Rajiv Malhotra addresses the challenge of a direct and honest engagement on differences by reversing the gaze, repositioning India from being the observed to the observer and looking at the West from the Dharmic point of view. Now, in my opinion, reversing the gaze is not what we want to do. We do not want to engage in the same erroneous project that the West engaged in the process of its colonial domination. We are not interested in reversing the gaze on Western culture. We are interested in universal knowledge. We are interested in universal knowledge. We are interested in establishing the status of Sanskrit ideas as contributing to universal knowledge. We are not interested in merely reversing the gaze. Now, Sheldon Pollock is a professor at Columbia and a close colleague of Edward Said's, and has been one of the figures who has engaged in training many of the scholars whose paper topics I just showed in the Columbia seminar. Scholars who are engaged in what I would say talking to themselves. Now, it's ironic that Pollock himself recognizes this and writes, the hypertrophy of theory over the past 2 decades often wound up displacing its object of analysis. This is exactly what has happened in the field of the study of India, that the scholars are engaged in talking to themselves. Only those who are engaged in the addressing the topic of Orientalism are considered to be engaging with any topic seriously. Only they are offered position in universities, and only they continue to train students and continue research supposedly on Sanskrit, but actually having little to do with Sanskrit and having more to do with discussing this same topic of the subjugation of other peoples, of gender studies, ethnic studies, and so on. Now, this is something that I have myself observed about this phenomenon. The disciplines of subaltern studies and critical theory have become the new point of view from which all knowledge is validated and relation to which all knowledge is subsumed. This is an accusation which was levied by Said at Western scholars, okay? But now it's Western scholars who are engaged in the subaltern studies and critical theory are the new Orientalists. In other words, they are the ones who are subjugating all knowledge to their ideas, okay? And only those who engage in subaltern studies and critical theory are considered able to produce valid knowledge. Genuine and essential knowledge is being neglected in favor of a small set of theoretical concerns. So why has this happened? That the new Orientalism is those who are engaged in these subaltern studies and critical theory, and anyone who engages in anything else is really not engaging in valid scholarship according to this dominant group of scholars in European and American academia today. It's based, as I said, on it's an outgrowth of Hegel's ideas, but it was turned upside down by Karl Marx, who instead of putting spirit at the top, Hegel was talking about a phenomenology of spirit. In other words, the expression of consciousness in the world. Marx considered the transformations in the history of ideas to be based on influences in the environment. In other words, economic and social concerns influence the ideas of human beings. As he says here, it is not men's consciousness that determines their existence, but on the contrary, their social existence that determines their consciousness. In other words, he denigrates voluntary and conscious subjects as responsible parties and intelligent contributors to knowledge. And he puts the primacy on social and economic relations. This is a purely materialistic worldview. In his Communist Manifesto, he writes, the materialist conception of history is, the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into two great hostile camps, into two great classes directly facing each other, bourgeoisie and proletariat. And he encourages forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Now you can see that this is exactly what is happening now in India and in the US with these Black Lives Matter protests. And many intelligent and responsible people have come out advocating the disbanding of the police, for example. And this totally irresponsible behavior on the part of responsible people is based on exactly these ideas in the Communist Manifesto. We have to recognize that this is influenced by communist ideology and anti-imperialist ideology, which has infected the entire academia and the entire liberal agenda in politics. Now, this has influenced academia in this way. Okay, according to materialism, only objects observable by the five senses are real. Consciousness and anything not observable by the five senses is unreal or epiphenomenal. Epiphenomenal means it depends on something material. The history of ideas is studied primarily as the product of social and economic forces rather than as a product of the intelligence of authors. Literary and philosophical productions are studied as the expressions of particular cultures at particular times rather than as the expression of universal truths. In other words, if Indian studies is engaged in this way, it's only interesting as a cultural phenomenon, and in particular as a cultural phenomenon due to social forces of subjugation by Brahmins and kings of other disenfranchised, as they call them, other disenfranchised peoples and classes. Now, on the reverse side, fundamentalism of any kind involves the literal reading of a text and the misapplication of the deficient understanding so derived to dubiously related contemporary situations. Religious fundamentalism imposes modern religious divisions, which are necessarily based on historical and institutional accidents, on the interpretation of an ancient or medieval text. And I will give you a very vivid example. I happen to be a teacher of transcendental meditation, founded by Maharishi Yogi. And this picture, beautiful painting by one of Maharishi's primary members of an ascetic women's group called the Mother Divine Group, painted this beautiful painting. And it shows Narayana here, hardly visible in the ocean, and Brahma and the whole tradition from Vasishta down to Swami Brahmananda Saraswati, and Maharshi standing at his side here. Now you see below, all these people are sitting on the Ganges River bank, and you see below here, below Gurudev's feet, water and light flowing out over the whole world. Now, if one takes this expression, this beautiful expression of the tradition of knowledge as a depiction of cosmology or geography, then immediately one would ask, if the whole world is here, if the whole earth is here, on what ground are all these teachers sitting? Now, this is the kind of thing, this is exactly the kind of thing that fundamentalist readings of ancient texts do. They take this as a literal representation of geography, and then they've got a problem. The Puranas undertake a number of descriptions of geography. One Puranic description of the universe represents the earth as a flat circular disk. Here you see it, almost like a record on a record player, resting in the middle of the cosmic egg, or Brahmanda, surrounded by primal elements. Above the disk of the earth are stacked the layers of various heavens. Below the earth are corresponding layers of the various underworlds, or patala, and beneath those, in turn, successive hells, or naraka. This is from an article written by Christopher Minkowski, currently the Bowdoin professor at Oxford University. He continues, the Puranas represent the surface of the earth as consisting of a central circular continent ringed by a series of concentric continents separated by ring-shaped seas of salt, ghee, milk, etc., surrounded by a final continent culminating in a ring of mountains on the outside. The central continent is idealized by propagating the rough shape of the Indian subcontinent in 4 directions. Okay, we've got, it comes to a point and it's surrounded by the ocean on 3 sides. If we just rotate that around, we get a rough picture of the rose apple tree. Now, he continues, thus the Puranas present a vast and detailed geography of an enormous earth filled with continents and peoples, some located millions of kilometers away from Bharata. Of course, it is difficult to coordinate this account with the geographical knowledge known to us from other sources, either past or present. But he points out, so this is very much like interpreting that picture of the holy tradition I showed you as a statement about geography. If we interpret the Puranic descriptions as meant to be accurate geographical and cosmological descriptions, then we run into a problem because they don't correspond to reality. As he says, there were other modes of apprehending reality than the imaginative or meditative, even in Sanskrit, and even in the first millennium. For the calendrical science, Brahmin astronomers posited a spherical earth of a correct size. In other words, the Siddhanta tradition in Jyotish Shastra knew very, very well exactly what the shape of the earth was and how far it was from the sun. They set down mathematically demonstrable distances between the equator and Ujjain, and between Ujjain and the Himalayas. In the Sahyadri Kanda, as in other similar material, it's quite clear that the authors communicated real-world geographical knowledge. They knew just where places were, how far, and in which direction, and what sort of people lived there. So then why do the Puranas engage in that kind of discourse if there was knowledge available that was accurate about geography and cosmology? He concludes, and I believe correctly, the generation of what we would consider to be practical geographical knowledge was not a function of the Purana geographies. Okay, so a literal reading, a fundamentalist reading of the Puranas leads us to wanting to understand that as stating facts about geography and cosmology, when obviously those facts are not correct. And those who might feel insulted by someone saying those facts are not correct don't understand how to read a text properly. And the authors of those texts would probably be aghast if they understood how some fundamentalists would read those texts, just as the painter of that beautiful painting of the Holy Tradition would be aghast if someone were to try to defend that painting as an accurate depiction of geography and cosmology. That was not her intention at all. Now, a very similar thing happened in the West. In Italy, Dante wrote such a description, which is very similar in many ways to the Purana descriptions of worlds above and below the earth. The Divine Comedy depicts many layers of hells in the Inferno and in the Purgatorio and in the divine realms as well, many levels above the earth. And he casts various figures in his contemporary society into hell with various punishments appropriate to their sins as he sees them. His aim was not to describe the cosmology of the earth and the heavens. His aim was to make comments on contemporary society and the moral fabric of that society. So similarly, the descriptions in the Puranas have other functions. They're interested in describing dharma, what's right and wrong. They tell many stories which depict these dharmic and adharmic actions, and they cast figures in various parts of the universe fitting for their behavior. Now, let's come back now to the discussion of what constitutes real knowledge and what constitutes expression particular to some particular culture, and the difference in how those attitudes view knowledge. Okay, generally in the sciences, people consider that the sciences have to do with real knowledge. Columbus discovered America. Sir Isaac Newton discovered the equation that allows us to calculate the force of gravity between two objects. He discovered various facts. Okay, this is the way it's written in Wikipedia. Okay, everybody's respecting these as discoveries. Charles Darwin's scientific discovery is the unifying theory of the life sciences. Okay, and Louis Pasteur, renowned for his discoveries. Okay, scientists discover, that means something was real and they just came across it. Now Newton's discovered it around 1715. Okay, gravity is not considered the expression of British culture at a certain time and place. It's considered to be universal knowledge. And similarly, past the idea of vaccination is not considered to be some expression of French culture. So if we look now at Vedic cognition, the way people frame that knowledge is that Panini composed the Ashtadhyayi, Shakespeare composed Hamlet. Madhuchandas, the son of Vishwamitra, composed the first sutta of the Rig Veda. And humanists would want to depict these productions as cultural expressions. But Panini's grammar was a linguistic science. He discovered the efficacy of generative grammar. He composed the sutras. Shakespeare may have composed the play of Hamlet, but what's depicted there are universal emotions, which is why people can still appreciate it hundreds of years after it was written. And Madhuchandas, the son of Vishwamitra, he composed the first sutta of the Rig Veda, but is he describing a universal attribute of fire, of Agni, which is the central topic of this hymn? So in what way is it meant when the Veda is said to be eternal? Obviously, there were suktas, which are composed in a language in the continuous stream of the history of language change at a certain time and place. And in that sense, it is a cultural expression with a temporal framework. However, the sense in which the Veda is eternal is that it describes facts, real knowledge of consciousness and certain aspects of human nature that are universal and true for all times and places. So when we talk about universal science versus idiosyncratic or humanities as the expression of some particular culture of a time and place, we have to think what we mean by these statements of Veda is eternal. The use of the term discover contrasts with that of invent or proposed or wrote or created, which are used for literary, artistic, and technological productions. Literature and art represent subject realities of ideas and emotions, but subjective realities of certain ideas and emotions are universal and real. Only the particular expressions are idiosyncratic. And so to cast all of Indian production, all of Indian literature as simply expressions of a certain time and place, a certain culture, is to undermine their contributions to universal knowledge. But what we do not want to do is simply consider those as a new framework to view other ideas which we want to subjugate to these ideas, as seems to be the hint in reversing the gaze. Now, let's see, how long have I spoken here? I'll try to make it quick here about materialist reductionism. The point of this section of my talk is that what claims to be reality as physical reality and the whole doctrine of materialism is baseless. Basically, materialism is a kind of naive outlook on the world, which wants to reduce objects that we consider to be real, like tables and chairs, human beings, okay? They want to reduce it all to molecular processes, atomic processes, the interaction of subatomic particles, and physics is the most successful of the physical sciences, then reduces everything to explanation in terms of subatomic particles and quantum fields. And the point is that consciousness is also thought to be reducible to the function of neurons in the brain, so that reductions of human individuals is just caused by some firing of neurons in the brain and not due to their own creative thought. This is materialist reductionism. My brother wrote his doctoral dissertation on the philosophy of quantum mechanics. He's currently a physicist at Maharishi International University. He wrote in his dissertation, the Schrödinger equation, theoretically, the Schrödinger equation is the central part of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. The Schrödinger equation theoretically determines the precise state of a system at any time. However, to measure the state requires use of a measurement device. The measurement device is not viewed as a quantum system. It's viewed as a macroscopic object. It's viewed as a measuring device, not as a bunch of subatomic particles interacting with each other or excitements of quantum fields. Okay, therefore, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics includes reference to a macroscopic entity, the measuring device. Because it refers to a macroscopic entity, it does not achieve a microscopic explanation of entities. Therefore, quantum mechanics is incompatible with the reductionist program. In other words, the naive materialism that thinks that everything is explicable in terms of subatomic particles and that consciousness is reducible to the firing of neurons is without any basis, because quantum mechanics itself is not a complete explanation in terms of subatomic particles. It's an explanation in terms of macroscopic entities. What is it that decides that the measuring device is a macroscopic entity? It's the human consciousness which designs the experiment which decides that. Therefore, human consciousness is the fundamental element. Most contemporary discussions of the philosophy of mind acknowledge the hard problem of consciousness, according to which the fact of consciousness will remain unexplained, even if, and this is a big if, all the functional capacities of the mind could be accounted for in terms of neurophysiological processes. Why? Because even if we can correlate every thought in the mind with a neurological function, it does not explain how the human being views whole entities, how it is that we recognize wholes. And this is a fundamental fact of knowledge recognized by Immanuel Kant when he recognized the transcendental unity of apperception, that all knowledge is unified in our consciousness. John Hagelin, who is a prominent physicist and now the president of Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa, writes that in the context of quantum gravity, even the essential framework of space-time itself becomes indefinite, being replaced by a quantum mechanical superposition of space-time metrics. The concrete and objective nature of existence starts to become more tenuous at fundamental scales. In other words, what looks physical and hard and concrete in a naive materialist outlook looks very less material when you look at quantum mechanics, quantum science. Because the uncertainty principle implies that the act of measurement inevitably disturbs the system under observation, the classical notion of an objective and independent observer is inconsistent with the structure of quantum mechanical reality. In other words, consciousness is involved in the system, and no description of physical reality in the most successful description of physical reality ever in the universe, that is quantum field theory, is successful without including consciousness of the observer. Robert Boyer recently wrote a book called Pointless, in which he states, the holistic Vedic view contrasts dramatically with the physical theory of consciousness as reducible to neural activity in the local physical brain. How? And I quote Maharishi Yogi, foreseeing the approach of contemporary science to a viewpoint very much like the Vedic viewpoint, in particular the Vedanta viewpoint. If and when physical science arrives at what Einstein was trying to pinpoint by his unified field theory, one element will be established as the basis of all relative creation. This will serve to turn the world of physical science to the science of mental phenomena. At the ultimate or the extreme limit of investigation into the nature of reality in the field of the mind will eventually be located the state of pure consciousness. Maharishi is expressing here how physical science will approach a conception of reality that is very similar to that conception which is articulated in Vedanta. In other words, that the ultimate Sat, existence, has the nature of consciousness, Chit. And this is what is at the center of the academic programs at Maharishi International University. This is a unified field chart which Maharishi encouraged all of the disciplines taught at Maharishi International University to create, which shows the structure of physics and its reduction to the fundamentals in quantum field theory, ultimately being unified in a unified field theory. And it expresses how that unified field, which is at the basis of all of the physical sciences, is the same as the field of pure consciousness, which is at the basis of thought and is approachable in processes such as are described in the Yoga Sutras and in the meditation traditions of India. Now, I want to just end by a brief description of the dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where Yajnavalkya states, "Na pretya sangyasti, na pretya sangya asti." Literally, it means there is no cognition after going forth. But pretya, praitya, literally going forth, usually means dying in classical Indian literature. And so one prominent scholar in the US, who usually does quite good work, and I highly respect him for his training of students to do serious studies, such as making critical editions and translations of texts that have not hitherto been adequately presented to the world. But he was highly influenced, I think, by Materialist Reductionism when he translated this, that after death there is no consciousness. Now, the impression that this gives is that the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad dialogue, the Yajnavalkya Maitreyi Samvada, is instructing a very materialist point of view, which would be more appropriately expressed by, let's say, a Charvaka than by a Vedantin. That is, that once one dies, there's nothing left of consciousness, and just the material body is left to decompose. However, one has to frame this statement in its context. And the Mimamsa tradition has advocated a long tradition, in its long tradition of understanding texts according to their prakarana, according to their context. Okay, but let's look at these interpretations. Okay, there is no cognition after death. Olivelle, after death, there is no awareness. Hume translates after death, there is no consciousness. But Swami Prabhavananda says, where there is consciousness of the self, individuality is no more. Now, when you look at Prabhavananda's translation, it seems to depart quite far from the exact wording of the statement. However, I will show by looking at the context that this is exactly what it means. And his loose translation captures the essence of the statement. Further on in the dialogue, well, first of all, let me just say that at the beginning of the dialogue, Maitreyi Yajnavalkya says, I'm making a division of my belongings, tell me what you want between you and your co-wife. And Maitreyi says, I'm not interested in material belongings. Tell me how I can become immortal. Tell me, I'm interested in the knowledge of immortality. That begins the dialogue. Now, in the context of a dialogue about immortality, why would Yajnavalkya say, na pretya sanya asti? Is he telling her there is no immortality? And after he makes that statement, she tells him, I don't understand what you're saying. And he says, what I'm saying is perfectly clear. He says, this alam idam vijnanaya. He says, alam idam vijnanaya. And now Patrick Olivelle interprets this to mean that idam is referring to the body. And he says it means this body, idam shariram, is capable of consciousness. In other words, he takes a very materialistic point of view that somehow the body is responsible for perception. Now, Swami Brahmavananda interprets this in a very different way. Alamidam vijnanaya is what I said is sufficient to be understood, is perfectly capable of being understood. Alamidam vijnanaya. Why is it perfectly capable of being understood? Because of this passage. And this passage is also described elsewhere in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in similar terms. Yatraha dvaitamiva bhavati taditara itaram jighati taditara itaram pashyati taditara itaram shrunoti taditara itaram abhivadati taditara itaram manute taditara itaram vijanati yatra vai asya sarvam atma eva abhut tatkena kam jigret tatkena kam pashyet tatkena kam shrunuyat tatkena kam abhivadet tatkena kam manvita tatkena kam vijaniyat yena idam sarvam vijanati tam kena vijaniyat vignataram are kena vijaniyat. And I translated just the essential parts of it down below. Where there seems to be duality, then one sees another, then one cognizes another. But where everything has become one's very self, then by what means would one see what? Then by what means would cognize what? In other words, what he's talking about when he says, na pretya sanya asti, is not that there's a loss of consciousness altogether, but there's a loss of this vijnanam, this discursive kind of consciousness, which separates the knower from the known by a means of knowledge. And so there's no longer that active interaction between knower, known, and means of knowledge. In the state of pure consciousness, which is silent wakefulness, in the state of Sat-Chit, which is characterized by Brahman awake in itself. So a materialist bias gives a totally wrong interpretation of the passage, and the passage is not just the expression of a particular culture at a particular time. It's making an assertion about the nature of reality, and the assertion that this Brihadaranyaka passage is making about the nature of reality, and that Vedanta in general is making about the nature of reality, is in fact the description of reality which contemporary physics is approaching in its unified field theories, in understanding that the basis of all of material reality is a single unified field, and that single unified field must include consciousness. It cannot exclude consciousness from an accurate description of reality. And that's its essential nature, in fact. So, in conclusion, the direction of Indic studies should avoid two extremes. And this depiction here of the Strait of Messina is taken from description in Homer's Odyssey, where Odysseus, returning from the war, comes to this strait, and he's told, you have to be very careful going through this strait. If you go to one side, you get swallowed up in a whirlpool, and if you go to the other side, you crash on the rocks. So you have to avoid the extremes of fundamentalism and of dialectical materialism, and engage in serious scholarship to understand what is being said and what is being said about the universal nature of reality. What kind of productive research is there to do if one avoids engaging in the contemporary politicized academia dialogue of subaltern studies and topics of race and gender and so forth? First of all, to make descriptive catalogs of Sanskrit manuscripts, 30 million manuscripts in India, David Pingree estimated. 10 million have been documented in the survey of manuscripts conducted by the National Mission for Manuscripts. Make critical editions of texts, translate these texts. There are many texts which still have not been brought to light, which only exist in manuscript form and which are just ignored by the whole tradition. They're in danger of just rotting on the shelves of manuscript libraries and being lost to the world if we don't engage in dealing with them. And then explicate the topics in relation to contemporary disciplines. In other words, not just as cultural ideas of India at this time and place, but investigate what is said in these documents that may be relevant to universal knowledge. And to publish these works in the digital medium. Why? Because the transition of the main medium of knowledge interchange now has shifted to the digital domain. This is especially true now after COVID-19, when people are avoiding gathering in public places. And but it's been true for a while now that the contemporary generation, if they can't find it on the web, it doesn't exist. So it needs to be, all our work now needs to be done in the digital medium. And further, to utilize the digital medium to assist in research. There are many ways in which digital technologies can organize and synthesize materials and present it to us in ways that help us draw new insights. And these methods should certainly be used. As one example, the digital dictionaries, which the Sanskrit Library has produced, which are available here on the website. 45 different dictionaries are all available. In order to get all 45 of them, one has to go to the preferences and check them, because initially when one comes here, only 4 are shown, but there are 45 available. And most of these dictionaries are simply neglected. And most scholars in the US use only Monier-Williams or Opday. And in Germany, or in German-speaking countries, they use Böcklink's Roth lexicon, which is certainly the most comprehensive of modern bilingual dictionaries. However, there are many specialized dictionaries and Sanskrit dictionaries which give additional information, such as the Shabdakalpadruma and the Vachaspatya, and specialized dictionaries such as Grassmann's Wörterbuch of the Rig Veda, and Vedic Index, and Sorensen's Index of the Mahabharata, which we've turned into a dictionary. Okay, all of these Sarkar's cultural index of the Mahabharata. So there are many specialized dictionaries which give additional knowledge which is not used generally because it's hard to find. But if we put it all in the digital medium like this, we can enter a word here and look it up in all of them at once, and that saves us a lot of time from having to go to a specialized library and find the specialized dictionary, and nobody does it. So the digital medium is allowing us to present a lot of knowledge and make it more easily accessible, and we should take advantage of that in our studies. So with that, let me close my presentation, and thank you very much. And I took a full hour. I'm sorry, Amba, if I cut into your time, but if there are questions, I'm glad to answer them. And any discussion.
Hello. Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Discussion is open now. Discussion is open now.
I am Dr. Neelakanthan. Can I add a few words?
Please.
Hello. Hello, Dr. Neelakanthan. Can I add a few words?
Sir, കേൾക്കാം പറയൂ.
Okay.
പറയൂ sir, പറയൂ.
The deliberation of Professor Peter was very extensive, interesting, comprehensive, especially in the concluding part of his deliberations. He has given some very important clues or important areas in which the Indologists or those who are interested in Indian knowledge systems should concentrate in intensive research. That is, he has given the list very explicitly, preparing descriptive catalogs, bringing out critical editions of rare works in Sanskrit, explication of topics in our tradition in relation to modern or contemporary knowledge systems, publication of important works, then using digital media for new research. All these areas are very important. All scholars who are working in the field of Sanskrit, they have to concentrate in all these fields. So he's summarizing the intention of the main viewpoints of his talk in the end. Was very stimulating. And I would add one more thing to that. for the knowledge, for the awareness of the young scholars or the team of teachers and students who are attending. We have to do much work in the collection of survey and collection of manuscripts also, because even now there are so many manuscripts unattended, uncollected. They are now even now in private collections. Only a percent of the manuscripts that are in our widely preserved in the private collections, only a considerable percent has been located and collected in the massive libraries. Even now there are so many manuscripts remaining unattended. So it is a very difficult work, field work that required patience, involvement, very hard. So such things also we have to concentrate. All these things, I am not going to the details. These are very important. That list, each and everyone should study. That 5-6 points he has given in the end of the concluding part of his lecture. Professor Peter Scarf, your talk was very informative, very stimulating to the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. And yes, I agree with your addition also. This still many manuscripts lie outside of collections. And also it's important to encourage those who are responsible for collections, that is the libraries that hold these manuscripts, to facilitate scholars in making critical editions. Some libraries have come to have the attitude that these manuscripts are ours, and they don't want to let anyone from outside use them, and they think that that somehow just with the manuscripts in their library, someone is going to do some work to make an edition. But an edition, to make a proper critical edition, requires collecting manuscripts from many different libraries and collating them together. And this work is only possible if those responsible for the libraries understand that and facilitate scholars, because it's very difficult for scholars to come and stay for a month at some location remote from their home and foot all the expense of staying in a hotel or someplace in order to work at the library. They need to obtain a copy of the manuscript and go back home with it. And I encountered one comment by one the director of an academy who said to me, if we give you the manuscript, then what will the purpose of our library be? And I answered, if you don't give me the manuscript, what will the purpose of your library be? So this is something we have to encourage in those who are responsible for manuscript libraries. They have to encourage sharing their manuscript with scholars.
Dr. Shaf, I'm Dr. Rajesh.
Yes.
Thank you so much for presenting such a wonderful topic, which gives light into the reality in the field of research with regard to Sanskrit. I have a question that, there is always a dilemma in the field of Sanskrit research. Indian wisdom is considered as a highly subjective knowledge, the knowledge of seers, and science is always considered as objective, which is derived from many means of knowledge, some experiments like that. So there is always a conflict between this Indian wisdom and the knowledge imparted right from the Vedas when we deal with science. The fundamentalists from East would say everything is science from our side, and the fundamentalist, the other part would say that is pseudoscience. And as a matter of fact, all these subjective knowledge which are generated right from the Vedas through our seers cannot be ignored. As you rightly said in the last part of the session, and you are quoting Swami Prabhavananda, the explanations given by him for that particular hymn. So what do you think, how it could be overcome, this conflict between both fundamentalists? We have to have an academic perspective to this problem, which should be very, very objective also. What do you think? How can we overcome this situation? That is my question.
Yes, thank you. It's a very, very good question and a very important question. The answer to that is that there is no conflict between subjective and object. The subjective and objective science, the two need to learn to cooperate in order to bring out full knowledge. Now that physics has come to the extreme and neuroscience has come to the extreme of finding the connections between subjective and objective knowledge, we need to undertake the kind of experiments that allow collaboration between these approaches. And I'll give an example that it's been found recently that in the practice of transcendental meditation, in the experience of pure consciousness, there's an unusual and unique correlation in the firing of neurons from all parts of the brain. And this is measured by the electroencephalograph. So the electroencephalograph is a sophisticated a machine that measures objects, and it's being used in validating an experience which is described in what we can call Vedic science, in the science of yoga. So these can be brought together and cooperate in study. It's not necessary that they be in conflict.
Any more questions? I don't think there is
Okay.
query.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I look forward to hearing Amba Kulkarni's talk and the contributions, as I mentioned, from digital technology for the study of Sanskrit are very important. I'm sure Amma will have some more detailed information to give us about how that is possible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Next lecture is of Dr. Amba Kulkarni. Ma'am is basically from maths background, but became a scholar in Sanskrit. Now doing research combining both Sanskrit and science. A real scholar and a great teacher. Because of her devotion in teaching, she grew up many scholars and researchers. I invite Madam Dr. Amba Kulkarni to deliver her lecture. Ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can I share my screen?
Sure, ma'am.
No, it says only one participant can share at a time. Peter, will you please unshare your screen? Can you see my slides? Hello?
Yes,
can you see my
yes,
slides?
we can see. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
we
you
can
very
see.
much. Okay. So thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to this uh, webinar on emerging trends in Sanskrit research. Uh, just now, Professor Peter Schaff has uh, spoke about the consciousness, and from consciousness he came down to the research areas, uh, especially talking about the manuscripts. This is something which is important in this uh, era of language technology. Technology typically brings in lot of changes. There is a sankramana. Whenever there is new technology, there is a sankramana. We need to contemplate upon what we are doing, what is the necessity of the present age, the changes that the technology brings in, and accordingly we need to uh, change the direction of our research as well. So today I will be concentrating more on what opportunities are there in the light of language, in the light of the technology change, the information technology or the language technology that is now uh, uh, capturing all the devices that we are using. So essentially, language technology now is everywhere. How we can uh, change the direction, uh, or what new opportunities are there for Sanskritis in this era? This is what I will be speaking on. So I will talk about both the Sanskrit computational linguistics, and I will touch a bit on digital humanities as well. So what happened? Yeah. So as I said, this is an age of information technology, and if we do not equip our languages, they may become obsolete. So I'm not talking just about Sanskrit, but I'm talking about all Indian languages for that matter. So it is something like those languages which do not have script, they were not able to uh, produce the text in written form when the print technology was there. And later on, of course, some of these languages have become extinct. Those which are still there, they have adopted some scripts. For example, Konkani, uh, it has adopted Devanagari so that it can produce the material in printed form, and now of course in digital form. So now what changes are there and what needs to be done for Sanskrit as well as for mother tongues? Now I am including all our mother tongues because the things will become clear as I proceed. Sanskrit, of course, is the mother of all these, most of the Indian languages. And uh, for even Dravidian languages, Sanskrit has influenced a lot. So when I'm talking about Sanskrit, naturally the Indian languages, modern Indian languages, I want to merge or take them together with Sanskrit. So when I say we need to equip Sanskrit for next generation, what do I mean by that? So my talk is in two parts. In the first part, I'm going to present the scenario, what are the opportunities, what needs to be done, etc., and what can be done. These are the two things which the way I'm planning my talk. So we need to equip Sanskrit for the next generation. By that I mean we need to make Sanskrit techno-friendly. We need to strengthen the Indian grammatical tradition by showing its applications. And we need to strengthen the link between mother and daughters by building language communicators between Sanskrit and modern Indian languages. I will explain each one of them in detail. So what do I mean by making Sanskrit techno-friendly? we need to develop OCRs, okay, optical character recognizers, for print as well as handwritten texts. That is, they can handle even the manuscripts. Various scripts such as Sharada, Nandanagari, etc. need to be handled. And it's not easy job to develop an OCR. Well, OCRs for Romanized scripts, Latin scripts are already there. But Latin scripts are just unidimensional. Just you write letters one after another. Whereas Indian scripts, I will say, are three dimensions. There are three lines, three layers. One, of course, is the middle one where you have the normal glyphs. The top and the bottom, they have certain modifiers, which are the vowel modifiers. Or sometimes when you have conjuncts, one below the other, when you write like d below d, or t below t, or k and then v below it. So we need to have uh, techniques to identify each of these units separately and then compose the text. So the OCR actually poses a lot of challenges when it comes to the Indian scripts. Then we also need speech synthesis and recognition. Why? Because of course, in some sense, you may say we need it for Indian languages, modern Indian languages, but why for Sanskrit? Just imagine you have all these talks which are recorded and stored in digital media. Tomorrow, suppose you want to identify or search in these recorded talks what somebody said on some topic on certain date. You need a system which will recognize the Sanskrit text and produce the text out of it. Then we need spell checkers and grammar checkers. Spell checkers will be very much useful for editing the manuscripts. Grammar checkers again will be of use for those who are composing Sanskrit texts, or for even for those who are editing the manuscripts. Because manuscripts may have certain, they might have got damaged, and now you need to guess what is there in the damaged part. So if you have spell checkers or grammar checkers, then they will help you to edit the manuscripts very comfortably. Then we need search engines for Sanskrit, which are enabled with Sandhi and Morph analyzers. Again, in case of English, it is very easy to build search engines because the words, they do not inflect. There is not much inflection. So for example, if I want to search boy, maybe boy and boys, these two words I will search in the databases or on the on the search engine. So search engine will search these two in the databases. But if it is a Sanskrit text, we need to search a word with all the vibhaktis, because when somebody wants to search certain words, say for example, I want to search whether there is Dravida in Mahabharata. Now the word Dravida may occur with any vibhakti, and I do not know. I am just interested in knowing whether this word is there in the text or not. So I will have to search it with all possible vibhaktis. And if the text is sandhid, then even the sandhid forms need to be changed. So building search engines for Sanskrit is not as easy as building search engines for the languages like English. Now I will come to each one of them in detail. So for tools I discuss OCR, speech synthesis and recognition, spell checkers, grammar checkers, and search engines. And of course, we need several other tools, which I will come to later. Now, as far as the OCRs are concerned, suppose you need to build OCRs, you need a lot of annotated data. Now, what is meant by annotated data? You need the images and what this image stands for, what is the corresponding text. So, such a parallel corpus we need. Or suppose there are images, the manuscript image is there, one can mark various parts of the image as what it stands for. So you can have then a parallel data of images and the text. So text and images um, are correlated. And then there will be several confusing letters which we need to identify. So here comes the expertise of the Sanskrit scholars who know the script very well, who know what kind of uh, errors occur, and they can then guide the researchers who are using machine learning technology. And I will give an example here. For example, at IIT Bombay, there is a group who is now working on the optical character recognizers. There are few optical character recognizers already available for Devanagari. One, of course, is by Dr. Oliver Helwig from Germany. And then there is another Tesseract, and Tesseract is by Google, and there are few other uh, such OCRs. What, what is needed to develop any of these technology is a group of researchers, which is where one of them is a good Sanskrit scholar, the other one is a good computational linguist, the third one may be a computer scientist. So a team of such people then can produce uh, a good product. Now here I would like to tell you something. See, we are in the era of language technology or information technology. How it differs from the earlier technologies. Earlier also we had various technologies. For example, we had gramophones where we used to record our sound, or we have TV where uh, the images or the uh, talks are broadcast. Now here, these are language independent technologies where the transmission is taking place just through electromagnetic signals, which do not need any language dependent technology. Whereas the technology that we are talking today, OCR or speech recognition, etc., here we are not just dealing with the images or signals independent of language. So it's not possible to develop a technology independent of language. You can have some part which is independent of language, but you need to fine tune that technology, adapt it to your language. And here comes the expertise of the language persons. So what I feel is, now with this new national education policy, which is announced recently, we need to redesign our courses in such a way that students are introduced to some of these technologies at an early stage. They get some hands-on experience of working with various research groups. I will also mention who are the research groups to whom you can contact and work with them. See, the Sanskrit scholars now, just as the engineering students or science students go for internship, the business management students, they go for internship during their course of study. Similarly, we should plan that our students, those who are in masters or those who are doing MPhil or PhD, they go for internship to one of these institutes. They work with these scholars so that they get hands-on experience of what is going on and how they themselves can contribute to such a technology. They can then find out. So that this process should start as early as possible. Maybe when the student completes his bachelor's and is interested in going for masters, at that point in time itself, he should start exploring these possibilities, just as the BTech students go for internship. Similarly, our bachelor students should go for internship to various organizations and get hands-on experience. So the work on OCR is going on at IIT Bombay. OCRs for Sanskrit. Of course, they are working only on Devanagari. But then somebody should start working on Sharada or other lipis also. And for that matter, it is very necessary that somebody goes and understands the technology, comes back and starts working on it at their own institute. Even for the teachers, you can have teachers training programs where teachers are trained in these technologies and then they can take up some small projects. Then regarding the speech, again, uh, regarding speech, very little work on Sanskrit has been done, in spite of having Shiksha Shastra and Pratishakya Granthas with us. Uh, you know the speech technology, how advanced it is, and some of you might have also used Alexa, or you might have used the Google Map, which directs us, gives the directions, shows complete path, and at the same time, while driving, it guides us for taking right turns, etc. So there, it's all speech. So whatever information is there in the form of maps, that is being converted to a text, and text is being spoken. And as far as the Sanskrit is concerned, we have done very little work in this area, and we need to work in the area of speech recognition as well as synthesis. For that, what we need is hundreds of hours. Sorry, there is spelling mistake. It is HOURS. Hundreds of hours of recorded speech. And we need to get familiar with the computational tools. And this should not be much difficult. Some elementary work, preliminary work has been done by JNU and IIIT Hyderabad, but then they have not pursued it further. And as far as I know, the only reason is there are no Sanskrit uh, scholars who are coming forward to do this. The BTech students, they would not be much interested in doing something for Sanskrit. They would be much more interested in doing something for English because there is more job market for this. But then, why not Sanskrit scholars come forward and work on this, where the tools are available? What is needed is just some training on these aspects and develop this. So of course this is uh, leading to production, but then you may ask, where is the research part involved here? And the research part comes from using your knowledge of Shiksha Shastra and Pratishakya to provide necessary linguistic model for these computational tools. Already some tools are there, but these tools are to be made language specific. Some language specific components need to be added to it, and there our Shastras can play an important role where our students can make contributions. Then I thought Professor Peter would be talking about digitization of text. So we also need, of course, many texts are already digitized, right from Sanskrit.net project, and then now we have Wikipedia and various other projects. Of course, Sanskrit Library is one such thing. Sarit repository is there, and then various other efforts by various organizations are also there. And we have lot of digitized text online, but very few of them are properly tagged, very few of them are proofread, very few of them are without any uh, typing mistakes, without any and of course with all the metadata, and metadata in the sense who is the publisher, who is the author, all the necessary bibliographic information regarding the text. Very few texts have all this information with them. Once such texts are there, then we can link them with the existing tools for analysis. So, for example, suppose somebody wants to read some text, say Ramayana, Mahabharata, or Gita, or Vyakarana text, or maybe Kadambari. Then, if these texts are linked to already available tools, then it will be easy for the uh, readers who want to understand the text. They will have all the tools readily available online, and it will be easy for them to understand the text. Just to give an example, we have here e-reader on our Samsadhani website. So this is our Samsadhani website. I am showing the local version, and here you will see e-readers. So in e-readers, we have Sankshepa Ramayanam, Bhagavad Gita, and Shishupalavatham. So let me go to Sankshepa or Bhagavad Gita. And here you have all the 18 adhyayas. I go to say Dvitiya Adhyaya. And suppose now I want to understand this shloka, tam tatha krupaya avishtam ashrupurna akula ikshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudanaha. So I just click here and I get the anvaya of this shloka. I can change it to shloka order also. So this is the shloka order. Now you see here, the words are split with, wherever there are compounds, they are split with this hyphen. And if there is a sandhi, the words are separated. So vishidantam idam, ashrupurna akula ikshanam, this is a compound. So the all the components are separated. So we have this shloka, and for each shloka, for each word, you have the morphological analysis, and we have the Hindi as well as English meaning. And further, each of these words is linked to the dictionary. So if I click, say, on Madhusudana, then pops up this window where I have right now only Apte's dictionary, Monier-Williams dictionary, and Heritage is the Sanskrit French dictionary by Gerard Huet. So if I click on Apte's dictionary, I get the meaning. If I click on Monier-Williams, I get the meaning in English. I can also see if this word is there in Amarkosha or not. Amarkosha, I don't have Madhusudana. So we have this link to the dictionaries. Right now I have only 4 dictionaries, but of course Professor Peter Schaff has showed his dictionary with 45 dictionaries linked together. So I can also link this to his dictionary so that a person can have access to all the 45 dictionaries. Now, what is the use of this? So now just imagine you are editing a manuscript. You have an OCR, optical character recognizer, which recognizes the text, and after recognizing the text, it presents the text in normal text format. Now you run these tools on those, and you will get all this analysis. So essentially, manuscript from manuscript editing to the production of a kind of commentary on it, all things can be mechanized. Of course, it's not completely automatic. There is a human intervention in between. So uh, you can imagine yourself as something like a person, or let me give another example. Mallinatha's commentaries, all of us are familiar with. What Mallinath did for each of the texts, same thing we can do with the help of this technology for each of the manuscripts. So we can link wherever necessary the words with the Paninian Sutras if necessary, or various other commentaries, which are all available online in digitized mode. So this is what we can do. We can use this technology for the betterment of our society, for the betterment of for ease of accessing these texts. So the Sanskrit texts which used to lie somewhere in the cupboards, now they will be available online with all these links. And to do this, it's not yet mechanical, though these tools exist. What is needed is human intervention and improvement of these tools. So how researchers can contribute to it? They can develop various, if they have some background in programming, they can develop various tools which will assist the editors. And those who have good background in Sanskrit Vyakarana, they can help in improving the performance of the tools. Now, what is meant by improving the performance? I will give one example. So, uh, I showed you that we have this Samsadhani, where e-readers which we have, these are the things which we have produced semi-automatically with human intervention. But there is Anusaraka, which is a machine translation system from Sanskrit to Hindi. So I go here and I give one shloka from Bhagavad Gita. एवं उक्त्वा अर्जुनः संखे रथोपस्थे उपाविशत् विसृज्य सशरं चापं शोकसंविघ्नमानसः. So this is a shloka. So I have selected the text type as shloka, and now I give this text to machine for analysis. So just I'm demonstrating how machine can analyze a text, and wherever machine does some mistake, how to improve upon it. So here machine has analyzed uktva as aktvanta, arjunaha pullinga prathama ekvachanam, sankhe saptam napunsaka saptami ekvachanam, ratha upasthe उपाविशत उपपूर्वक आंग पूर्वक विष धातु विसृज्य सशरम चापम चाप पुल्लिंग द्वितीय एकवचनम etc. And what machine has produced is this analysis. So here you will see Upavishat is produced as a verb. Shoka samvigna manasaha Arjunaha. Now you see in the given shloka, this shoka samvigna manasaha was at the end, Arjunaha was in the beginning, but machine could identify them as Visheshya Visheshana. So shoka samvigna manasaha being the Visheshanam for Arjunaha. Sankhe Ratha Upasthe are the Adhikaranas. Visrujya is the has Purvakala Sambandha with Upavishat, similarly Uktva. And here, who are the Karta for Uktva and Visrujya? Machine has identified them by dotted lines. Why dotted lines? Because the Vibhakti, Prathama Vibhakti, here there is an agreement, Abhihite, this is the Abhihita Vibhakti. So here this one is Karta. But for Uktva as well as Visrujya, which are in Tva or Lyap, we have a sutra by Panini, Samana Kartruka Yoho Purvakale. So from that, machine guesses that these are the, or infers that this Arjuna is the Karta for both these, which is where the Prathama Vibhakti does not explicitly say it is Karta for these two, but because of that sutra, it infers that this should be the Karta for Upavishat, because there should be Samana Kartrukatva with the Purvakala. Now, Sasharam and Chapam. Now, we know that Sasharam, Chapam, Sasharam should be Visheshana for Chapam, and it has produced Kriya Visheshana. So, there is something wrong. And here now, Sanskrit scholar can go and try to see, can I fix this mistake? Machine has done some mistake. So, it is something like when we teach a child makes some mistakes, and then as a teacher we try to find out why the student has made this mistake. Can I rectify it? Can I teach him not to make this mistake? So same thing we need to do with computer. So uh, here again, your knowledge of Sanskrit can contribute, you can use your knowledge of Sanskrit Vyakarana to improve the performance of the current system. So this is how you can contribute to the current research. Okay, let me go back now. So we can then use such tools and link the existing tools with the analysis, etc. We can also hyperlink with other texts, like already such hyperlink text exists. For example, if you go to ashtadhyayi.com, where you will see Ashtadhyayi, Siddhanta Kaumudi, Kashika, Praudha Manorama, and Bala Manorama, all these are linked with each other. So once you select a particular text, a particular sutra, the commentaries on all these are there. And if there is a reference to another sutra, then again you can go to that particular sutra and so on with the hyperlinks. Manuscripts I have already mentioned, I will skip it. Then once we have such tools, we can use them to produce the spell checkers or grammar checkers. We can use them to develop search engines once we have the word analyzer or the Sandhi splitter or Sandhi joiner. We can develop question answering systems. For example, suppose I'm not just interested in knowing whether the word Dravida is there or not in Mahabharata, but in which context this word is there. So machine should go and search the context and tell me, oh, this is the context in which this word is used. So question answering, of course, is on top of the information extraction or retrieval. So once it goes and extract the information, and after extracting the information, it produces the answer in a language which we are familiar with. So it may produce the answer in, say, Sanskrit, but if you want it in Malayalam, you can produce the same answer in Malayalam also, provided you have Sanskrit to Malayalam machine translation system. And for developing such systems, what we need is the knowledge of our grammars. So here comes the importance of Panini. Panini, through Ashtadhyayi, has provided a grammar formalism. So that grammar formalism we can use to analyze or write grammars for modern Indian languages as well. And if we have such a grammar for Malayalam or Telugu or Marathi or Punjabi, then the analysis produced by this grammar formalism for Malayalam can be mapped or transferred to into a Sanskrit Sanskrit analysis. So just mapping the Sanskrit Malayalam words to Sanskrit, but whole structure of karta, karma, etc. remains the same. And then we can generate the text in Sanskrit, or if we have original text in Sanskrit, we can translate into Malayalam. For Sanskrit, already we have a grammar. Panini has given a grammar. Similar grammar we need to have for other Indian languages. So Panini's grammar is important from three perspectives. One, of course, he has given the grammar formalism, which we can use for other languages. We have grammar for Sanskrit, which we have been using to develop all these various tools, and also the tagging scheme for dependency, parsing, etc. And the third aspect of this grammar is the presentation of grammar, how it is presented, how it is written, how it is the syntax of this grammar, or various techniques Panini used to make this grammar as brief as possible. So these are various aspects of this grammar which computer scientists are interested in. So those who are very well versed with Ashtadhyayi, the structure of it, if they have some exposure to the principles of programming languages, then they can see the similarity between the two systems, and maybe there might be some techniques which Panini has used which are new for the current day computer programs. For example, the data structure Shiva Sutra itself is something which is unique to Ashtadhyayi, and this data structure was not at all there in computer scientists were not aware of such a data structure, and this data structure is actually very much useful for lot of practical purposes. For example, arrangement of books in the library or arrangement of atoms in the mall and so on. So if you have an algorithm to convert these 41 Pratyahara Sutras to one Shiva Sutra, linear Shiva Sutra, and this is what Dr. Peterson from Germany, she worked on. She gave an algorithm for this. So Panini has given a very unique data structure. There are various other aspects of Ashtadhyayi which can be which can be explored further. So these again become potential areas of research, potential problems for research. Then grammar formalism, as I told you, Panini has given this grammar formalism, and it is necessary to develop computational grammars for modern Indian languages based on this grammar formalism. We can also we also need to develop guidelines for how to do the Vishleshana of Vakya Vishleshana. By dependency passing, I mean the Vakya Vishleshana. So, of course, for Sanskrit, it is very easy. Panini has given the grammar, we can identify the karta, karma, etc. very easily. When it comes to modern Indian languages, we need to uh, understand the essential theory or the Panini's viewpoint, and then develop the computational grammars for our languages. Then we have the discourse analysis by Mimamsakas, and the Nayayikas also talk about the Sangatis. So the Sangatis, which uh, tell you how one paragraph is related to another paragraph, how one sentence is related to another sentence, or how one text is related to another text, what kind of sangatis are there. All these are discussed in our Shastras, and the modern, the current language, current trends in language technology, one of the hot topics is how to do the discourse analysis. We already have the theories. What we need to do is to bring them into practice. There are various applications of this discourse analysis in the present day. And then the natural language processing, I will say, natural language processing, thy name is disambiguation. So there is nothing but just disambiguation in natural language processing. We do disambiguation at various levels. And for disambiguation, again, uh, we have Bhartruhari's Karika, I remember, Sanyoga Viprayogascha. So he has given some 14 points to decide how to decide the meaning in a context. So this is something which natural language processing is looking at. Can we then use those pointers, and then and again for Shakti Graha also we have various Shakti Graha upayas are there. So can we make use of them to develop uh, a disambiguation technique? Given a sentence, can machine automatically decide what is the meaning in the given context? So these are some of the challenges in front of the natural language processing uh, industry as well as the researchers. So this is where our Indian traditional scholars can contribute a lot. I will not go in these details because I am running out of time. So I will directly come to what can be done. So uh, we need to first make Sanskrit techno-friendly. So we can think of training on various tools, workshop on various tagging schemes, etc. Tagging not only at the karakas, etc., but even the meta tags that need to be given, or when you are uh, when you are storing the text, the whole structure of the text, you need to annotate. So there are various text encoding guidelines for for tagging these texts. So we need to train scholars for various these techniques, and then we need to use appropriate softwares for linking manuscript images to the e-text or for editing manuscripts and so on. Uh, then a lot of research needs to be done in these areas, search engines, OCRs, and speech recognition and generation. So uh, the present day engineering students, they need some intensives to take up projects related to Sanskrit, because they feel that if they work on Sanskrit they may not have good job opportunities. So either we need to train our Sanskrit scholars so that they can work on these tools um, uh, with confidence. Otherwise we need to provide certain incentives to these engineering students. Various tools such as these are already developed, morph analyzers, etc. And I showed you one example of the sentence analysis. So we need to train Sanskrit students to test and improve these existing tools. Even we can have small MPhil projects where the MPhil students look at these, consider one particular aspect of it and provide solutions for them. And engineering students can be encouraged to port such tools on various other platforms so that people start using them to develop um, other applications on top of it. Then we can introduce a short course in B.Ed on the use of various existing computational tools, because now, see, with this COVID, we have to switch over to the online technology. So these tools are very useful for online teaching, and therefore I think there is an important need to introduce a short course in B.Ed itself, so that the next uh, generation teachers, they become aware of the existing tools. Then for Ashtadhyayi, we can think of introducing short-term courses on programming principles, concepts, and methods in some of the Gurukulas or some institutions, etc., where students are taught Ashtadhyayi as well as computer programming simultaneously. And with this new education policy, it is possible, and this may lead to a new uh, research area. Then dependency grammars for Indian languages we need to develop. So we need to write grammars like Paninian grammar for modern Indian languages. And of course, training courses in computational linguistics so that they can take up some research areas in research areas in these um, various disciplines. Then this was all technological. What about the basic research? Fundamental research again is necessary. Say, for example, with Shabdabodha theories, how to model yogyata? What is tatparya? Can we model it from a computational point of view? This will be very useful for word sense disambiguation. How do you decide that there is an yogyata between the two words, two word meanings? Then Ashtadhyayi, again we have various other useful uh, possible usages. For example, in expert systems, the expert systems that are there in artificial intelligence, they need to know how to resolve the conflict when there is a pratishedha, vipratishedhe param karyam. Only uh, there is one sutra in Ashtadhyayi, and there are various other techniques also to resolve the conflict. But then can we suggest something, or can we build an expert system with, or can we come up with uh, an expert system with the ideas that are there in Ashtadhyayi or in our tradition to provide a better expert system? Then Navyanyay, we can build a reasoning system. I'm sorry, there are some typing mistakes. So we can build a reasoning engine, automatic reasoning engine using the Navyanyaya. Vaisheshik ontology is useful for word sense disambiguation again. Mimamsa is useful for various tagging, developing tagging guidelines for discourse structure representation. And then we can even think of an applied grammar course at school level. See, now again, the NEP is talking about teaching the three language formula. So uh, naturally, it is practical. There are practical difficulties in teaching all any language that a child demands, then we restrict ourselves to one or two languages. But then with technology, I think it is possible to teach any of the Indian languages um, if we have taught them certain principles of how a language works, how a language encodes the information, how to understand the meaning of a sentence of any language for that matter. So these basic linguistics, which is based or rooted in Panini's grammar, can be taught at school level, so that you can the students can uh, then they can access text in any language uh, within India, and then we can also think of languages across the world. Uh, Finally, these are various institutes. I told you that I suggested that the students can go to these institutes for 2 or 3 months of um, uh, internship during the vacation. So, and various kinds of work are going on in these institutes related to uh, computational technology, and some of them are totally devoted to Sanskrit. Some of them are uh, interested in using the Sanskrit knowledge. So, IIT Delhi, I forgot to mention, IIT Delhi also has a strong group working on Sanskrit. So, these are various institutes, and I think you should take advantage of the opportunities and start working. Change the direction of your research and make it something which is directly relevant to the current practices. Hello. So I stop here. Yeah, I stop here, and I think I have taken a lot of your time. I'm sorry for that. If there are any questions, you're welcome.
Discussion is open now.
May I make a comment?
Yes. Yes.
So at the end of your presentation, Amba, you detailed some very specific suggestions for courses and
Yeah.
at institutions where these
Huh.
courses could be integrated
Huh.
to train students in digital Sanskrit humanities.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention that Tanuja Ajotikar and I designed a
Yeah.
digital humanities curriculum
Yes.
for a 1-year diploma in digital humanities that would include some computational training as well as linguistic training in Sanskrit. And we can think about how to implement that curriculum somewhere. It would be a good idea, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Any
Anyone
question?
else?
Madam, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Do you have any projects or program
Huh.
which is designed only for the college students, which can be even operated in the virtual mode, so that it is easy to incorporate all these supplements along with their studies.
Okay, so we already have some 8 or 9 hours videos which deal with which actually discuss how to use the tools that are available on our website Samsadhani. So I will send you a link. These are in mixture of language. Sometimes English, sometimes Hindi. So both the languages, and sometimes even a bit of Sanskrit is also there. But of course, if necessary, we can tailor-made such videos and uh, provide you such videos. And those will be useful for the graduate students.
Madam, thank you, madam. I have one more question.
Yes.
It's a request, not question. As you mentioned in this session that, we are lacking in terms of experts in some areas where we need real interfaces, right?
Yeah.
So being the faculty members of the, even take it an example as my college, Government Science College, Trivandrum. We have a lot of expertise here. We have a good library here, but there is nobody is to coordinate or to the drive this interface. Do you think any possibility of having such a kind of interface between the faculty members of these institutions like Sanskrit colleges, universities, etc.?
Yeah. So it's possible. See, what needs to be done is one or two faculty members from your institute should visit one of these institutes. Say, if you visit our institute and stay with us for say 1 or 2 months and get familiar with the work, then we can then proceed online. Okay. In the beginning, some face-to-face discussion and on hands-on is needed. Of course, to start with, I would suggest those 8-9 videos which are there. I will send you a link. You can go through those videos, and later on, if one or two faculty members, those who are very much interested in this, who are techno-savvy, can visit us for some time, maybe initially for few days, then 2 or 3 times, so that we become familiar with what are your interests, what are your strengths, how you can contribute, how you can take up the work there in your institute, and then you can design small projects for your BA students to start with. So this is possible.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can I enter into one doubt? Dr. Neelakanthan speaking. Hello, Dr. Neelakanthan, can I enter into a discussion?
Yes, sir, please.
Wonderful, wonderful. Your speech was, I was listening, it has covered all possibilities of the new techniques of digitization, computerization, all things. It is very informative. But I share with you one concern regarding this. All things are now with this device, with this technique. What we all things are in our tips of the finger. What we of the finger. And the young students and young researchers are delighted. They are very happy to get things. I feel what will be the position of our traditional learning of traditional shastras, memorizing the karigas, panktis, vrittis, old text in memory, all these things. What is your opinion?
Okay, fine. Okay, good question. And
one more.
Yes.
1 minute.
Yes, yes.
Especially, I am working in the field of Veda.
Okay, yeah.
And you have a great tradition of memorizing the whole text.
Yeah.
All is Prakriti Vikriti Pathas.
Yeah.
In
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I have experience for seminars and all other things. All these Vedic Pandits are using smartphones. Whenever they want to recite a mantra, they simply. So this will be all our Shastra tradition. So it's your what is in your mind.
Okay, fine, fine. Thank you. Thank you very much for raising this question. See, we have, uh, let me first answer the first one, where you have raised about the oral tradition and what will happen to it. See, we have uh, when we study Ashtadhyayi, there are two pakshas. One is the Arthi paksha and the other one is the Prakriya paksha. Okay. Now, Prakriya paksha is something where you need definitely all these memorization and various things. For Arthi paksha, it is not just memorization but interpretation of it. And at present, and I'm sure it will be still difficult for machine to do this, use the relation between the word and word meanings. This relation we know is something which is um, anadi or whatever. So this is there, and this relation only those who have consciousness can understand the relation between pada and padartha. So for machine, I personally feel that it will be still difficult to uh, do the Arthi Paksha analysis completely on its own. What machine can do is look at various patterns and present the material to you. But the interpretation of it needs to be done by human being. And for that, he needs to use his brain. And for that, you need to know the Shastras very well. Then only you can do this. So, application of Shastras will still be there. So, and only those can do that interpretation very well if they know the complete Shastra. And for that, it should be there in its memory. That is one part. Of course, even if it is there on computer, at, as far as the Ashtadhyayi is concerned, if it is in on machine, maybe sometimes they may miss something, but somebody who has everything in his mind in a holistic way with all the linkages in its brain, he will not miss it. Of course, this is there is a lot which I can tell about this, but then I want to jump directly to your second question because it is something which is tempting me to for the answer. You mentioned about the Prakruti and Vikruti pathas. In fact, these Prakruti and Vikruti pathas are something which need to be studied in detail. This is a very important research area for me. How is that with these 8 Vikrutis and 3 Prakruti pathas with 11 various pathas, how is that you have kept the text intact? Because when we transmit text from one person to another, there is a chance that there is loss of information, and these various kinds of pathas, they have protected the Vedas. So I see there is some similarity with in terms of computers when we uh, when the information is transmitted in different media, they in computers, we add certain extra bits, which we call parity bits. Just as you have the Vikrutis and you have Kramapatha, not Kramapatha, Jatapatha, etc., or Ganapatha, where you are adding the redundancy. Similar kind of redundancy is added in computers transmissions also. And these are called error detecting codes, and there are error correcting codes also. So I will be more interested in studying how the Vedic tradition has preserved these Vedas over such a long period of time. Now, coming to your worry about what will happen to our oral tradition, I don't think there is any danger yet to this oral tradition, provided there are dedicated scholars who are dedicated to continue these studies further. In fact, it is, I will say, our tradition is something like a living museum, and this tradition should continue. And for that, they should at the same time take up some such studies of this kind, so that the tradition is not only alive but also has some linkages or some applications with the current day. So this is my answer. I'm not sure whether you agree with me and you are satisfied or not.
Any more queries? Ma'am, it was truly informative and very valuable. Thank you very much. Next is a paper presentation by Dr. Ajikumar PV. Sir is assistant professor in Government Sanskrit College, Tripunithura. I invite sir for a paper presentation.
Thank you. Respected colleagues and respected dignitaries in the virtual platform. First of all, I would like to congratulate my friends in Government Sanskrit College Thiruvananthapuram for organizing such an event on this topic. Also, I express my sincere thanks to give me such an opportunity to participate in this discussion. Here I am I was asked to present my views on how should be the research in Vedanta topic for the coming years. That's a topic suggested to me by Dr. Rajesh Kumar, my friend. But here I want to make some corrections in the topic. Rather than, I want to make one thing clear, that before thinking about the nature of research for the coming years, it is essential to have a check on the current status of Sanskrit in the higher education sector, because the people who are doing work or studying courses in the higher education may go to the research, so as it is happening now. So it is
അജി വീഡിയോ വേണമെങ്കിൽ ഓഫ് ചെയ്തോ. അജി കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ?
കേൾക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ആ വേണേ വീഡിയോ ഓഫ് ചെയ്തോ, അപ്പൊ കുറച്ചുകൂടെ ഓഡിയോ ക്ലാരിറ്റി കിട്ടും. കേട്ടോ?
ഓക്കെ, വീഡിയോ ഓഫ് ആണ്. ഇപ്പോ ഓക്കെ ആണല്ലോ അല്ലേ? So here I want to make one thing clear, that before thinking about the nature of research for the coming years, it is essential to have a check on the current status of Sanskrit in the higher education sector now as it is going on. I am mostly I am discussing about the current factor in the higher education in the Kerala state itself, and not in the international level or in the national level, which about which we are quite familiarized. It is so because only graduates with a thorough academic background can undertake a serious research work. So it is my suggestion that a major shift is inevitable in the current higher education, at least in the case of Sanskrit. This I am raising because as suggested by Dr. Srinivas Varkedi in the inaugural address of this seminar, he has suggested that we have to think about the changes even in the undergraduate level. So with I am from the Vedanta field, so I am speaking about it. Vedanta reveals its ultimate aim as one's own realization with the Almighty. That is correct. But it is there, and it will remain as the extreme goal also. But we may not forget that the Vedanta never denies the validity of the present world in the experimental level, Vyavaharika level. So, as every graduate student, the Vedanta student also wants a livelihood, whether it is Vedanta student or any other subject, Sanskrit field. So, so her or his education should have some content to acquire a good status in the society. Now, most of us are. I'm blaming myself, including myself, not anybody else. We are giving coaching our students to write examinations by feeding them with the already written documents or notes preserved for decades. So this system should be changed. Students should acquire at least a working knowledge in the language, and they should be able to handle the language in the from his own or her own level. Only then he or she can make a valuable contribution to the research field. That is why that is what I understood about this program. So so first of all, we should give them a thorough and strong foundation for in the study of Sanskrit in the even in the undergraduate level. At least as we are our degree programs are starting, our college programs are starting, higher education programs are starting from degree courses. So we have to change. We have to make enough changes to equip the students with a strong language foundation. So the shift should be made from the very first beginning of the graduation level. This is my first point that I want to make clear. Another thing is that as the program organizer suggested, what should be the areas of the Vedanta which need more attention or the more attention in the research level? The one important area, as I think, is the great. We have a great textual tradition in Vedanta, not in Vedanta Sanskrit literature, but we as particularly now as I'm talking about the Vedanta, there is a great textual tradition. There are original text commentaries, and there are commentaries on commentaries, and more commentaries are there. So these are written in different ages, and the learner of the 21st century, as we may not be able to connect the thing, the ideas given by or suggested by our ancestors in the 10th or 9th century when these commentaries were written. So we just swallow or by heart the sentence, and we are just trying to give the same ideas to the students. So there are some from the beginning 9th century to the 14th or 15th century, the tradition of the Vedanta Vedanta Shastra was very lively in our nation. So we are either we are studying in Vedanta and studying the text commentaries written by Shankaracharya in the 8th or 9th century, and after that we are studying another text written in 12th century. So what are the difference? Why these discussions are made in the 12th century text? So some links are missing. Why these much commentaries or these much interpretations are given by the commentator, or such links are missing for us. So even in some commentaries, they are not mentioning about what are the Puravaksha or Siddhanta Vaksha, what are who is there, and some Kejana, and that is the word used in many texts. So we have to for understanding the real flow of the real development of the philosophy literature, we have to get these links back. So for that, a good project or project or something like that, a research project may be done with in collaboration with the research institutes or our colleges or universities. Such projects may be give help to the new learner of this philosophy to understand what how these ideas were developed, and for that we have to we have to seek help from the other areas also, not from the Vedanta itself, because Vedanta philosophy as accepted in the world is the culmination of philosophy. So up to that level, many philosophies philosophers have contributed to the this philosophy. So we have discussions with the Vedantins, have discussions with the Nayayikas, Purvamamsakas, and also there are some differences between the Vedantins themselves. Same is the case with the Advaita tradition also. So we have to take assistance or help from the Nayayikas, Mimamsakas, and other other philosophers, other experts in other scholars of other philosophies, so that we can we may have a good lively history or lively tradition. We have to keep the lively tradition. We can keep the lively tradition of this philosophy, which may help coming learners to understand what is there, what is interpreted in the text. So such an attempt will be helpful for the students and modern society also. So for that, we have to change our mindsets to adopt such thinking. So I am not blaming anyone, but I am saying from my own experiences that even we are thinking about adopting a new topic or new subject to a graduate level or PG level. Many oppositions are there. We are as I am blaming on, I am talking on myself. If if anybody want to suggest a text from another field, I will say that this will not be helpful. I am from Vedanta, so Vedanta text should be taught in the taught in this field. So we are not ready to adopt other philosophies or other shastras to the field, to our education. Adding to the suggestions made by Dr. Amba Kulkarni in this just before this session, I want to suggest that such subjects should be made part of the part of our curriculum from the graduate level itself, because our students are more equipped with these technological developments, and we also have to just as suggested by madam, that one or two teachers may go to their institution and get assistance from them. So we may also take assistance from such institutions and get collaborations with them and seek suggestions from them, and our by which our students may also be get benefited. So with these words, I would like to conclude my thoughts once again, thanking to Dr. Rajesh Kumar and my colleagues in Trivandrum College. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Even though we are running late, but one more paper presentation. It's a Niranjana Winlis. She's a student from University of Bangalore. Niranjana.
Am I audible?
Yeah, audible.
Short as possible.
Hello.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. A very warm good afternoon to one and all present here. My name is Niranjana Winlis. I am a BSc Yoga student from S. Vyasa University, Bangalore. Today, I am here to talk about the scope of Sanskrit researches related to yogic anatomy. Everyone here presented papers regarding wide areas of research scope, but I'm only trying to explain the scope in a specific area. Every Sanskrit word is believed to have its own consciousness, and pronouncing the word correctly allows one to tap into that consciousness. With the power of Sanskrit and the wonderful art of yoga, one can achieve the utmost consciousness. Yoga is the art of controlling mind and channelizing the energy. It is one such discipline which gains more popularity day by day, especially during this pandemic. There are over 40 types of modern yoga. Example, Namaste Yoga, Iyengar Yoga, Activa Yoga, etc. The ancient and most important form of yoga is the Patanjali Yoga, which is also known as the Raja Yoga. Modern yoga are somewhat specialized. Hatha Yoga mainly focuses on the asanas, and Kriya Yoga mainly focuses on pranayama and dhyana. Whereas the Patanjali Yoga provides a holistic approach. It is not a mere experience to keep our body fit, mere exercise to keep our body fit. Rather than only focusing on asanas and pranayama, it encourages a yogi to adapt a lifestyle involving self-control, self-development, and a harmonious relationship with others by following the yamas and the niyamas. Patanjali Yoga has 8 limbs. The yamas from the first limb, they are the ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, and aparigraha, which are the social disciplines. And the second limb, which are the niyamas that are shaucha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana. It's the self-development of a person. But understand how much importance is given to the social and self-disciplines. Nowadays, multidisciplinary researchers pave way for much higher opportunities more than just textual researches. Yoga is one of the disciplines which is deeply connected to Sanskrit. Most of the historic yoga texts are written in Sanskrit. Sanskrit helps the disciples to understand the history and background of the practice. Teaching the original Sanskrit text rather than teaching the translated versions give the true gist of what is being taught as it is. Anatomy plays an extremely important role in yoga, but there is no ancient Sanskrit text or decoded manuscript which is yet found, particularly for the anatomy of yoga. Even though there is Susruta Samhita in the field of Ayurveda, where anatomy is greatly explained, students are being taught only modern anatomy. The relationship between the anatomical structures and the spiritual concepts of yoga is a highly unexplored field. Most of the ancient texts, which are in Sanskrit, explain the spirituality part of yoga. Hence, only someone who knows Sanskrit well and also have a keen interest in the anatomy of yoga can reveal these mysteries. For example, there are 9 openings in our body. They are the eyes, the nose, both the nostrils, mouth, urinary opening, and the excretory opening. Apart from these, there are 2 more openings which get closed after the birth of the baby. They are the umbilical cord through which the baby is kept nourished in the mother's womb, and the brahma, the brahmarandra or the murtha. There are two zigzag lines in everyone's skull, which can be seen by the naked eye. They are known as the sagittal suture and the coronal suture. The point where these two intersect is known as the brahma in the modern anatomy and the brahmarandra in the Vedic anatomy. This murtha gets closed only after 18 to 24 months of the baby's birth. That is why it is told that while taking care of a newborn baby, not to touch that region. The Brahmarandra can be opened with the help of Prana Shakti. One attains moksha when the prana is able to leave the body through the Brahmarandra. Just like that, it is believed that the soul enters the baby's body in the 4th month of pregnancy, which is mentioned in the Susruta Sharira Sthana in Susruta Samhita. If we think about it, it is advised by the doctors not to perform abortion after the 3rd month because abortion is difficult and have more complications after the 3rd month. Like these, many other hidden concepts may be there. Anatomy teaches that each and every person is different. Even if two people who look similar outside, they do not feel the same inside while practicing an asana. For example, while practicing Parvatasana or the mountain pose, it is always told by the instructors to keep the feet on the ground. But everybody cannot do this. There are two main reasons for that. Firstly, it may be due to the muscular rigidity, which can be reduced and made more flexible with the regular practice of yoga. And the second reason is due to the bony compression. That means the two bones in the lower leg are hitting the heel bone in the ankle joint and cannot move any further. This cannot be changed even a little by the practice of yoga or any other type of practice for that matter. This is something each one of us have from birth. This compression angle varies from person to person. Therefore, some people can keep their feet on the ground while others cannot. This doesn't mean that those who cannot keep the feet on the ground are doing it in a wrong manner. Each and everyone is right to their own body and no one is wrong here. This is why competitions must not be promoted in yoga, but exhibiting the asanas can be encouraged. Even though we generally say common benefits for everyone in each asana, the benefits also slightly vary from person to person depending on the individual anatomical structure. As mentioned before, there are 40 types of yoga, but to which extent are these postures correct according to the ancient text is a really big question. It is definitely not, because yoga injury is increasing day by day. Now, yoga injury is even a specialized branch. According to the University of Sydney, yoga injury is increasing 10% every year. This happens mainly due to the ignorance of anatomical knowledge and the ancient way of practicing. Psychosomatic disorders are physical disorders which have a mental cause. For example, migraine, tension headaches, ulcers, and hypertension are few of the psychosomatic disorders which may be resulted due to the stress. Today's teens are the most depressed than ever. According to the World Health Organization, suicide is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-old globally.
കേൾക്കുന്നില്ലല്ലേ ലക്ഷ്മി ടീച്ചറെ?
ഇല്ല, കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല.
ഔട്ടായോ?
നിരഞ്ജന Niranjana. Continue, Edison.
Okay.
Okay. We are approaching the end of today's session. Before vote of thanks, I'd like to give some information about tomorrow's webinar. Tomorrow we will have lectures from Paulo sir. Sir was former Vice Chancellor of Kalamandalam, and Muthulakshmi teacher. Teacher is head of the Department of Vedanta in Shankara. So our webinar of tomorrow will be starting sharp at 10. Now, next is vote of thanks. I invite Srimati Uma A.K., head of the Department of Nyaya, Government Sanskrit College, Tirunelveli. Ma'am.
Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Namaste and good afternoon to all of you. Here we are coming to an end of the third day of international webinar on emerging trends in Sanskrit research organized by IQAC, Government Sanskrit College, Trivandrum. I am here to deliver the vote of thanks to our invitees and participants. First of all, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. K. Unnikrishnan, our Vice Principal, for delivering the welcome speech. Coming to our invitee, Dr. Peter Scarf from Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. He was speaking about the approaches to research in Sanskrit. The lecture will surely provide an insight to all the research scholars of Sanskrit and Indology. Sir, on behalf of our principal, the IQAC team, the faculty members, and all the participants of this webinar, I express our sincere, heartiest gratitude to you. It was an inspiring and worthful speech. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And coming to Dr. Amba Kulkarni, the very versatile scholar in multi-knowledge systems and an expert in the field of NLP. Madam's speech was very worthful and it was inspiring. I used to hear many of her lectures from my student life itself, from Chinmay and all. Madam, on behalf of the IQAC of our college, of the faculty members, and all the participants, we express our sincere gratitude to you, ma'am. Thank you. And coming to the two papers, one of the paper was presented by Dr. P.V. Ajikumar sir. He is the faculty member of Vedanta Department, Government Sanskrit College, Tripunithura. He was speaking about the research in the field of Vedanta. Sir, we are expressing our sincere gratitude to you for presenting the paper. And our today's younger scholar, Niranjana Millis, she couldn't complete her paper, even though we congratulate her for the presentation. And of course, we express our sincere gratitude to you, Niranjana. Very well done. And the seminar and the discussion shows the worthfulness and the success of the today's webinar, and particularly for Neelaganda participants in the discussion. On behalf of IQAC, particularly the coordinator Rajesh sir, and our faculty members and all the participants, we are very grateful to you, sir. And finally, I express all the participants of today's webinar, and namaste to all, and thank you. Thank you. Lakshmi ma'am, over to you.
Thank you all.
Okay. Shall we wind up?
Sure, sir.
Okay. Thank you all.